Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're digging into something pretty significant that's happening right now. It's all about the UK government's recent decision regarding copyright protection for creatives, specifically in relation to AI.
It's a big one.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be drawing on some insights from a piece called UK AI Copyright Clash and Creative Concerns, and also a really interesting chat we caught over on the Westferry Times.
Good sources.
We think so. Our mission today really is to get to grips with what this copyright clash is all about, hear the different sides, and, explore what it might mean for the creative landscape going forward. And to help us unpack all this, we're really pleased to have a seasoned technology policy analyst with us. Big thanks to our friends at Westferry Times for making this possible. Thank you for watching Westferry Times.
It's great to be here. Looking forward to diving in.
Okay, so let's jump right in. The core of this whole thing seems to be the government rejecting some proposed changes to the Data Use and Access Bill. What were those amendments actually trying to do?
Well, the main thrust of those amendments was to basically require AI companies to get permission before using copyrighted stuff to train their models.
Permission first.
Exactly. The idea was tackling that growing worry.
Hmm.
That these AI systems are essentially learning from huge amounts of copyrighted work, but without the creator saying, okay, or getting paid for it.
Right. So it's fundamentally about giving artists and writers, musicians, control over their own work being used to build these new AI tools.
That's the heart of it, yes.
But the government, they saw it differently.
They did. Their argument was that the UK's existing copyright laws are actually good enough already.
Sufficient as is.
Yes. And they voiced concern that adding these new specific rules might actually, hinder AI development, slow things down.
Okay. And instead of those amendments, they offered something else, didn't they? What was their counterproposal?
Their alternative was this idea of an opt-out system. Yeah. So creators who don't want their work used for AI training would have to actively choose to exclude it, take steps to remove it.
I see.
From the government's viewpoint, this gives creators a way to protect their work, but it avoids a blanket requirement for AI firms to ask permission every single time.
So what we're looking at here is this real fundamental tension, isn't it, between wanting to push forward with AI innovation, which is moving so fast, and on the other hand, needing to protect the rights and, frankly, the livelihoods of creators.
Absolutely. That's the tightrope. How do you boost tech advancement while making sure creators' rights are safe? That's the central conflict here.
It feels like a really tricky balance, and it's fair to say the creative community hasn't exactly been quiet about the government's decision, have they? We've heard some pretty strong reactions.
That's putting it mildly. Yeah, there's been a significant backlash right across the creative industries.
Any specific examples?
Well, probably the most reported was Sir Elton John's comment. He was very critical, calling the government's position. Well, he called them absolute losers.
Wow. Okay, that's blunt. What are the deep down worries driving that kind of anger from artists? What's the main fear?
The core concern really is that their work, stuff they've poured time, skill, life into, is being used without any say-so from them.
Right, no permission.
No permission. And that immediately raises flags about losing control over their own intellectual property.
Yeah.
And crucially, it also points to a potential drop in income.
Yeah.
If AI can generate similar content, does that devalue the original human creation?
And that specific opt-out system the government proposed, it sounds simple maybe, but it seems to be a real sticking point. Why is that causing so much angst?
The big issue with opt-out is where it puts the effort, the burden.
Yeah.
It lands squarely on the individual creator to figure out how to opt out and then to actively do it for all their work. This is a huge ask, especially for, say, emerging artists, or just anyone without the time, the tech know-how, or the resources to constantly police how their work is being used online.
Right. It's like you said, the birdie shifts entirely onto them.
Yeah, it's sort of like saying, your house isn't locked unless you specifically register it as locked,
Sure.
rather than the default being that it is locked.
That's a good analogy. It definitely changes the default setting. And we also saw this really creative protest, didn't we? The Silent album. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, that was quite a striking move by the music community. Over 1,000 musicians, I think,
Yeah.
including some huge names, Kate Bush, Damon Albarn.
Really big name.
Yeah. They collaborated on this silent album titled, Is This What We Want?
Silent album. That's a nice statement. What was the message there?
The silence itself was the message, really. It was symbolic. It represented a potential future where artists' voices, their creativity, are effectively silenced or just drowned out by AI using their work without proper checks and balances.
So a metaphor for being devalued or maybe even replaced.
Exactly. A warning, you could say,
Yeah.
about their art becoming irrelevant in that kind of ecosystem.
And it wasn't purely symbolic, was it? There was a practical side to it, too, with the proceeds.
That's right. Any money made from the Silent Album went directly to the charity help musicians.
Ah, okay.
So that links the protest directly back to the very real financial worries artists have if their copyright isn't properly protected in this new AI era. It underlines the economic stakes.
It really hammers home that connection. It's clear the creative sector feels incredibly strongly. But what about sort of the wider political sphere? Has this debate resonated beyond the creative community itself?
Yes, it definitely has started to. We've seen figures like Baroness Kidron being quite vocal, for
Yeah.
instance. She's criticized the government's approach and even raised concerns about Prime Minister Keir Starmer potentially not giving AI copyright issues the attention they warrant. She highlighted the risk of real damage to the UK's creative industries, which are, economically vital.
So it's being framed not just as an artist's issue, but as potentially a bigger economic issue for the UK, too.
Precisely. And adding to that, it's worth noting that cross-party committees have actually urged the government to put artists' interests ahead of the tech companies in this debate.
Interesting. So there's some cross-party recognition of the problem.
It suggests a broader understanding, yes, that these concerns from creators aren't just niche complaints, they need serious thought.
Which leads to the question of potential consequences. If this isn't handled carefully, what are the bigger implications for the UK's creative industry overall?
Well, the creative sector contributes hugely to the UK economy. If creators feel unprotected, if they feel their rights are being ignored, that could genuinely stifle innovation within the sector. You might see new talent thinking twice about entering creative fields if they don't see a future where their work is properly valued and legally safe. It could sort of dampen the creative spirit that drives that whole part of the economy.
That's a really worrying thought, potentially undermining the very thing that makes the sector successful.
Absolutely. And then there's the legal side, too. We're already seeing lawsuits pop up in other countries.
Right, artists suing AI companies.
Exactly, alleging unauthorized use of their work for training data. It's not a huge leap to imagine similar legal fights happening here in the UK if these issues aren't resolved in a way creators find acceptable.
So looking forward then, what could be done? What are the potential steps to try and bridge this gap and address the concerns we've been talking about?
It really feels like collaboration is going to be key. Finding solutions that actually work for both the AI industry, which is moving incredibly fast, and for the creative sector. That's going to need everyone talking. Open dialogue.
Finding common ground.
Yes, and maybe some compromise on all sides. The big challenge is setting up clear guidelines, rules of the road, if you like, that protect creators effectively, but don't completely slam the brakes on AI innovation.
Are there specific types of solutions being floated or things you think might hold promise?
A few possibilities are being discussed. One is developing workable licensing frameworks.
Okay, like agreements on how AI can use copyrighted material.
Exactly. How they can access it legally, how creators get paid fairly for that use.
Mhm.
Another area is technology itself, maybe developing tools that give more transparency about how AI models use data, or even give creators more direct control over their work's inclusion.
So a mix of legal frameworks and maybe tech solutions. It sounds complex. Are other places grappling with this? Could the UK look elsewhere for ideas?
Oh, definitely. The European Union, for example, is actively working on its own regulations around AI and copyright.
Right, the EU AI Act has elements of this.
It does. So the UK could certainly look at the approaches being debated and implemented across the channel, learn from that process, even if the UK chooses a slightly different path ultimately, understanding the international context, what's working, what's not. That seems pretty valuable for policymaking right now.
That makes sense. Well, this has been incredibly insightful. Thank you for breaking down such a complex and, frankly, fast-evolving issue for us.
My pleasure.
It really seems clear that finding that balance, embracing AI's potential while truly protecting creators' rights is just, yeah, it's critical, isn't it?
Absolutely essential. How we navigate this crossroads between technology and creativity will really shape things for years to come.
And to you, our listener, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the AI copyright clash. It really does throw up some fundamental questions, doesn't it? About what creativity means, what ownership means, in a world that's increasingly interwoven with artificial intelligence. Something to really chew on is, as AI gets more sophisticated, what will the future of human creativity look like? And how do we make absolutely sure that the human beings, the artists behind the work, continue to be heard and, crucially, valued? Lots to think about. Until our next deep dive, take